Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Lifeboat with me, absolutely Arian, and I am so happy to have you here on tonight. I just want to welcome you if you're watching on the replay right now. Welcome also, but we're not here. But I also will always come back and read your comments and engage with them as well. But if you are here on live with us, I'm going to ask you to hit share right now because the topic that we're about to get into is so necessary. So we're talking about the art of the apology tonight, and I have a special guest who's waiting backstage who I'm going to bring up very shortly. But I just kind of want to just talk today about, how people just don't really know how to apologize. And a lot of the times you find that in our family dynamics, that saying I'm sorry and being accountable and verbally accountable for our actions is not really something that is practiced in a lot of family dynamics. And so when people get into relationships, just even with friendships, romantic relationships, whatever it be, a lot of the times we see ego and pride get in the way of our hearts, and it really just destroys relationships because we're not able to say like a simple I'm sorry. But we're going to get in tonight a little bit about how to apologize correctly so that you get just a favorable outcome, and also that you just can fortify your relationships with people who you care about and that you love. So without further ado, I want to bring my special guest to the stage. Her name is Fee, and she's going to be joining me in this conversation. And we're going to show you tonight just how to go through the steps of how to apologize correctly and just share our own experiences, maybe with how we have either learned to apologize, how we used to apologize, and maybe how we've been able to tweak that. So as you're coming in, make sure that you leave your name. Hi, Yvonne. Thank you so much for watching. So as you're coming in, leave your comments. I love to shout you out and say, hey, what's up? And also, just go ahead and just share your input, what you think about what we're saying, and just even, how you have maybe overcome the ego and the pride of not being able to say I'm sorry. So without further ado, I'm going to bring to the stage none other than Fee Sylvester. Welcome her.
Hello,
hey,
everybody. How you guys?
Hey, how are you?
Good. So excited. This topic, it is gonna be good.
Right? I'm so excited about this topic because it's something that I had to learn later in my life. It's not something that I've always been good at. I was actually a really bad apologizer. I did not apologize in a way that was just affirming or validating to anyone. It was always kind of on the defense. It was always just there was always buts in there, which would just negate everything I just said before, you know what I mean? And just trying to explain myself as opposed to just apologizing and being accountable for my actions, and that's it. And because really apologizing is not about me. It's never about you. It's always about the person, right? But before we get
because we're already jumping into it.
I'm excited. So before we get into it too deep, I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell everyone about who you are, what you do, and I want to welcome Chevy. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi, Chevelle.
I would love for you now to hit that share button, tag your friends in the comments, just write their names in the comments so that they can join too, because sometimes people don't get these notifications. So invite your friends because this is such an important conversation. But with that all said, now I would love for you, Fee, to just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so I love the fact that you're having this conversation and that you welcomed me here. Thank you for having me join you. So by day, I am an HR executive and I run a talent development department. And all that really means is I help people thrive and grow within their professional setting. But also by life, I just love people. I care about them. I want to see them thrive, not just at work, but in general. So I'm also a coach. And so I do different things around coaching and consulting and just helping people to get unstuck in life and really be more intentional about living their lives. We're all kind of floating through. Not everyone can say they're actually living and thriving. And that's where I come in to help them.
Wow, that's great. And also, I mean, you do a lot of that too. I guess your what you do as a career kind of pours into what you do also online, right? And on your platform. So you see, they kind of go hand in hand, which is beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Fee, we want to get into this topic right now because I'm just, as you can see, I'm really excited about it.
You're ready.
But as you guys are coming in, please, please, please hit share. This is such a necessary conversation that most people don't know how to apologize. And so go ahead, tag your friends in the comments and hit share. And if you also are now joining on the replay, you can also hit share, and you can also hit your right here in the comments. I always come back and read them. So Natisha, thank you so much for joining. Oh, love your hair. Thank you. Today.
Yes, it's late. Hello.
Okay, so were you always a good apologizer?
I love that question because the answer is no. But the reason I wasn't really the reason I often hear when I'm working with clients. It was more so because I grew up very much being like a good girl, right? So, you know, everything, you're supposed to be nice and sweet and kind and amenable. So, you know, just everything is supposed to be kind of easygoing. And so what used to happen is that showed up in my apologies because they were not always genuine. I just had been taught to apologize, you know, just, oh, I'm sorry. So it was almost like a second nature thing to say and not necessarily something I was thinking about and feeling in real time. So I had to kind of unpack a lot to even get to the place to understand why I wasn't a good apologizer.
Right. And that's interesting because I think I have the opposite. I mean, no, not the opposite. I wasn't a mean girl, but I definitely, I think I would say ego definitely played a factor in why I wasn't a good apologizer. I didn't like to be. I never liked to be I did never like for my intentions to be interpreted the wrong way because my intentions I've never intentionally tried to hurt somebody. I don't like to hurt people. But when somebody would tell me that I hurt them for something I did, or you know, or whatever it may be, it's almost like I would be, I don't want to say offended because that's maybe too strong of a word, but I would be just very defensive.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. Because go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'd just be very defensive because I wanted to be understood. I'm like, this is not what I was trying to do. This is not. And so my apology focused so much more on my intent than my impact. And what I learned much later in life was that the impact of your actions is way more important than the intentions when somebody tells you that you hurt them. And so I always give the example of when people just don't understand that. I always give the example of you're driving a car and you can't see because it's late at night, it's raining, and you accidentally hit a child on a bicycle.
Oh my God. Oh,
right?
Yeah.
A little dark.
Yeah, that's real. Right. Go ahead.
Right? And of course, it was not your intention to hit the kid. You didn't even see them coming, right? But here, you get out your car, and here comes the parent, the mother, whoever, running to the child, screaming, crying, oh my gosh, my child, you hit my child. It is so inappropriate in that moment to say, well, I didn't see them. They shouldn't have been.
I didn't mean it.
Like, you know, how insensitive are you in that moment to be focused on what your intent was, right? Here's a mother holding her dead child or her very hurt child, right? Who's crying, you hit my child, you hit my child. In that moment, what is really necessary is to be apologetic.
Right.
I'm so sorry, and to empathize because your intentions, you can deal with that you can deal with that later. You know what I mean? But when your first instinct is to defend or to, you know, defend your intentions over the impact, which is much greater in this moment, this is a life, then it's just twisted and backwards. And so that's the example I always use. And I know it's pretty like extreme, but it's important for people to understand why impact is much greater than intent when apologizing or when you've hurt someone. whether you intended to or not.
Right.
Their feelings matter more at that point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, so I mean, there's so much in what you said, right? The first thing about it being like a more drastic example, sometimes that's what people have to hear to understand the point, right? Sometimes we kind of can wiggle our way through, especially if we're not quite ready to be honest about where we're at and why we are having these struggles with apologizing. But something that's really important for us to remember is that wherever you are in this journey is okay once you're willing to continue the work of getting better at this, right? Because like you said, if I've done something to you and my intention was not to do something to you, but I hurt you, what I have to then ask myself is, what am I sorry for? Because if I'm sorry that I hurt you, then that's the end of that story. It's not about what I meant to do. It's not about, all those different things. It's the fact that, wow, regardless of what I set out to do here, I messed up in hurting this person I care about. So what am I going to do? Am I going to center myself and saying, well, I need to be right? No, you misunderstood. You know me. That's not what I mean. Or am I going to center my friend or my loved one or my partner and say, this is about how I've affected you and the damage that I caused you, whether or not I meant to. So it's so powerful. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, just based on what you were saying, why do you think it's so hard for people to apologize? Like, why do you think that, and just in general, why do you think it's just something that's hard for people to kind of come to grips with?
So it's funny that you say that because I'm going to geek out a little bit, right? And so if we think back to psychology, let's go. I need to get my glasses. If we think back to psychology, one of the fundamental human needs is for connection, right? Our social interactions have the same impact if we are hurt socially as if we were hurt physically on our brains, right? Our brain just knows there's danger afoot. We have to save ourselves. The reason I'm bringing that up is because if you feel defensive in needing to center and protect yourself when you're coming to a realization that you needed to apologize, now you're in self-preservation mode. So somewhere inside, you've been triggered to say, I have to take care of myself. So how that might show up, right, is if the person is like, oh my God, I'm defensive. They misunderstood me. So I'm defensive now. You've now triggered within yourself in some way, oh my God, I have to protect myself because if I'm socially ostracized or if they walk away from me or if they abandon or reject me, now I am unsafe. So sometimes we don't know what's going on neurologically or psychologically for us, but these are the things that are really pushing our behavior in certain directions. And the more we understand that, the more we can say, oh, okay, I can slow down. I know what's going on here. I'm still safe. Let me really hear this person and not try to say I have to protect myself.
Right. That's good. Come on.
Come on, one of these days too.
That was good. If you're just now joining us, I'm seeing these numbers go up a little bit. And if you're now joining us, thank you so much for joining. Make sure that you write your name in the comment. Let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to be able to greet you. Like Nicole, thank you so much, Nicole, for joining. And, just make sure that you hit share because this is such an important conversation. There's so many people out here who have no idea how to apologize and they don't even know that they're apologizing the wrong way. So we're about to get into it. We already talked about how, how we are different journeys on having to learn how to apologize and where we were at, and the root of our issues in terms of why we're not able to apologize the right way. And we're about to go into, and we talked a little bit also about why people have a hard time apologizing. And Fee really just broke it down with the science, with the neurological stuff and all the stuff that we're going through in our minds, and the defense mechanisms. Right. And so we're about to move on now into the next part of the conversation. I want to talk about what's the wrong way to apologize. So thank you so much, Nadine, for watching. Where are you watching from, Nadine?
Hi, Nadine. She's from Brooklyn. Well, she's actually in Jersey now. That's one of my friends.
Cool. And Brooklyn now. Mama B, thank you so much for joining, Mama B. Where are you watching from? Let us know. And let me tell you, and I just would like to know, with maybe just a few hands up, do you think that you are a good apologizer or do you have room to grow? If you have room to grow, put your hands up. I would love to see that in the comments. So send the hands up and let me, because
right. You always got to learn something, child.
Okay, Yvonne, watching from Brooklyn. Nadine is in Jersey. Thank you so much for joining. So yeah, this is an international show tonight. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so can you give me, or give us, I should say, a few examples, and I will too, of what is, you think, the wrong way to apologize? Like, what would that look like?
Ooh, yeah. So I think we started touching on it before, right? Centering yourself in the apology. And I think that that's a really complicated thing to say, because there's a natural desire to say sorry, but also explain, even if it's not trying to say, well, I didn't mean that, so I'm not wrong. I don't mean that kind of explanation. I'm just mean genuinely trying to say, oh my God, this is what's happening. This is what was showing up. Oh man, you know, but there's a really delicate balance between going so far down that path that you are now taking away all of the other person's power, right? And all of the other person's focus. They were brave enough to come to you and say, hey, this hurt. So if you now shifted the conversation fully back to yourself, you are now taking it off of how you hurt them and what they needed.
Right. And I think what you're saying is just completely just, kind of tying it up with a bow and making it, really saying what it is, what it is. You know what I mean? I also think though that what I found interesting about you said, like, people wanting to apologize and say they're sorry, but then also explain themselves, not knowing that you can do both. You can really do both, but it's about the order you do them in and how you do them. And so this is why tonight we're talking about the art of the apology, because there is a way that you can make sure that the person that you've offended gets everything they need, and also you get what you need in your apology. There is a way. I promise you there's a way. And so this is the segment now where you need to take out your pens, take your paper, let's take it out right now, because we're going to show you and explain to you how the art of the apology and how to really get what you need, for everyone in this or trying to reconcile or to make it right. Thank you I'm glad that you agree, Yvonne. And so we're going to talk about maybe what's the right way to apologize. And so I kind of made
Erin, before you even jump, because I saw Nicole said something and she gave the perfect, like she
I didn't see that. Yes.
She hit how often we hear this happen, right? So I want to give examples to people so they see what this looks like in real time. So I'm sorry if. That's usually followed up by, I'm sorry if what I did offended you, or if you were offended, or if. So now it's starting to separate your behavior from the impact that you caused, right?
Or I'm sorry, but
that was coming too, right? I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to do that. Or I'm sorry, but that's not really what I felt or what I meant.
Right.
All of these ways are how these things show up, because you're in real time invalidating that person's experience by centering your intentions around what happened. So go ahead, you were about to jump in.
No, I was going to say, and all of that is really centered around ego.
Yeah.
Ego and pride. And it gets in the way. It really gets in the way of our hearts, because our hearts really want to be, we want to reconcile. We want to be sorry. We want them to know that we're sorry. But then we have a battle of like the ego that wants to be right, that wants to be understood, that wants to be, to kind of push itself up and be understood. And that's where we kind of get lost in it. And so being able to apologize requires so much humility.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Woo!
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's one thing. It requires humility. It requires patience. Because one thing I used to do a lot is when somebody would be explaining to me why they were offended, they wouldn't be able to finish their story without me cutting them off. But no.
That's couldn't wait. Yeah.
But this is what I meant. Or no. I want to correct them as they're going along, and not allowing them to just finish their thought, pour out their heart, and say what they have to say. And that really, when you're trying to, when you're answering in order to, to get your point across, as opposed to trying to to understand, I think it's really important to first try to understand, then being understood.
Right. And that's a huge thing.
Yeah. So it's so important. Actually, before even that, I will go back and say, when somebody tells you straight up, you hurt me, that's when you go,
period. That's it.
Period.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's nothing else to be said. You hurt me. And that's when you have to really just allow them to speak and say why, you know, and then you listen with intention, or what we call active listening.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And the thing is that sometimes I know people have brought things to me where they're like, you hurt me. And I'm sitting there like, what? I just didn't even know what I did. You know what I mean? I really just wasn't, because it wasn't my intention. So, but like we said earlier, intent and impact are completely two different things. And impact is going to be always greater in that moment. So
yeah, I mean, if I could just jump in there, because you said so much that was really important. And I think a lot of why apology is like an art, and I'm also going to say a science, because both sides are important. There's technical aspects as to how to apologize well, how to communicate well, how to navigate conflicts well, because all of these different things are showing up. But then there's the art, that sincerity, that humility, and also the maturity. You have to be mature and secure enough in yourself to then say, all right, even if what I did was wrong, it doesn't mean that I'm bad. You know, even if what I did hurt this person, it doesn't have to then translate to a part of my identity. We make mistakes. That's part of being a mature adult. And I love that you brought up active listening, because just like you said, once the person tells you what happened from their perspective and you realize it caused them pain, now it's about them. And it doesn't have to mean that it stays about them and you're just like, everything is fine, you know, whatever, and you're groveling, right? Because the other side of it, and this is something I had to learn too, you have to sincerely apologize, right? Don't say what you don't mean, because people pick up on when you're being disingenuous, and that just adds to the issue, right? It just adds to the gap between
more fuel to the fire.
Absolutely. But also, you want to make sure that you don't internalize that experience as a part of your identity, and like to kind of carry it on as a core, something that's going to be a weight in the relationship. And what I mean by that is really just, you want to make sure that you hear where they're coming from. And that's why active listening, like you said, is so important. You hear where they're coming from. You hear the lens through which that they're filtering this. Because sometimes when you hurt somebody, it's more about them than about you. Sometimes it is about you. But you won't know that if you're not listening, if you're not engaged to really see, okay, what can I learn from this opportunity, right? This person is bringing me this feedback, this criticism, this whatever. What can I learn from this about myself, about this person, about life? If you're looking at it from that perspective, that's a growth mindset. It's much easier for you to be able to tolerate what you're hearing, process it, and walk away whole, and let that person walk away whole as well.
That is 100% correct. Check. And Yvonne says, let them finish their thoughts, apologize to them, then correct them after.
Correct them for me.
And you know, Yvonne, you are right. There are a few more steps in between there. But correct them. I would say you can now maybe show them, right, where you were trying to come from. And so we talked a little bit about active listening, right? And that is sometimes the hardest, because something Chevelle said that I thought like just made me think of, you know, taking the conversation there. She said, I do that a lot. I think I was saying something about, you know, you're listening to them and you're shocked because they're telling you that you hurt them. And you're just like, what? And so she said, I do that a lot in my mind, but my apologies are always sincere. But even when you're doing that in your mind, when you're doing the what did it, like sometimes you're missing what they're saying. You know what I mean? And so even in that, even if it's in your mind, we have to like block it out for a moment and just really listen and hear where they're coming from. So we talked about active listening. So what an example of that would be when somebody has said now or said to you why they're hurt. So for example, hey, I saw you at that party talking to my arch nemesis, right? And it really hurt my feelings because you know you know what they've done to me, and you're close to me, you know how that has impacted me, and I just really felt betrayed in that moment, right? And so if somebody says this to you, first of all, they're being very vulnerable, they're being very transparent. So the last thing they need in this moment is, oh my gosh, they don't need that. What in an active listening, what you need to do at this point so that they feel understood, so that they feel heard is, so what I'm hearing you say is at the party, and don't say this with like, you know, some people can be a little like patronizing when they say this, but like be sincere. So what I'm hearing you say is, when you saw me talking to such and such at a party, it made you feel hurt because you felt like I wasn't on your side, or that I didn't remember the pain you felt. Am I right? So when you now say that, you are now validating that you understood why they're hurt.
Right.
You give them the opportunity to say, yes, that is why I'm hurt, or yes, and such and such and such, or no, this is why I'm hurt, and just clarify. So now you are getting to the bottom of it. You're getting to understand. That's active listening and responding to what you've heard.
Right. Absolutely spot on. Yep.
But I hope y'all are taking notes now. Take down these notes. This is in order, because somebody tells you that they're hurt, you stop, you listen. You heard what they have to say.
What I would add to that too is that you want to also make sure that you're hearing the words that they're saying, but a step further is even trying to understand the sentiment behind it.
Yeah.
Right. So they might say, I was hurt, right? But you knowing your friend or whoever you're speaking to and understanding the complexity of the situation might recognize, I think they also might have felt betrayed.
Yeah.
So if you even want to go deeper, you dig deeper into the emotion and what's going on there, so you guys could really unpack it together and you can have a better understanding. And that also lays a good foundation for you to be able to say, well, what can I do differently, which we'll get to later on, right? This is now the recovery, but these are now laying the building blocks for you to figure out, okay, what happens next? But before we get there, I need to know what's going on right now and why it hurt you. Because again, this is when you start to kind of sift through, is it solely a me thing? Is it a you thing? Is it an us thing? Because there's three sides to every story.
I think we lost you there first.
Oh, am I still here? There are three sides to every story. Do you see me?
You're there now.
Okay, right? There's your side, my side, and the truth. Oh, no. I'm not sure why. But yeah, there's your side, my side, and the truth. Are you hearing me now?
Yeah. Yes, I think we are now. I think you're back.
Okay, good. So yeah, I was just saying there are three sides to a story. Your side, my side, and the truth. And if you are looking to apologize or navigate conflict to reconcile, all three parts of that story are important. Because if any side of that is left out, there's going to be something left unresolved. And that can come up later on.
Okay, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. You had a hard time finding the link. I'm so sorry about that. So glad that you did find it, and so glad that you are able to join us tonight. So make sure that you subscribe though to the channel, Lisa, so that next time that you get the notification on when we go live. And then also, if you're joining us a little later in our conversation, you really need to watch the beginning of this and really get the foundation of what we're talking about. So make sure to watch the replay, watch the beginning. And then also, while you're here, why don't you go ahead and tag some friends in the comments? I know you know some people who don't know how to apologize. I know you know some people who are real prideful and can't say answers. You know what I mean?
Right. That's the thing.
I mean, you don't need to tag them, but like, maybe share it with them.
Share it say it in it. Right? Just tag like, hey, check this out.
They might see it. You know what I mean? The art of apology, and they might want to, tune in and maybe find out how to be just a better apologizer. So go ahead and hit share right there on your button on the bottom of your screen, and let this message really go out to the masses, because I really do believe that this is something that's foundational and will really change. And like I said earlier, fortify your relationship, because when people feel understood, that really is what most people are looking for in this world, is just to be understood. And so when you have that within your relationship, when you have that kind of communication where somebody can come to you and be vulnerable and say, I'm sorry, like I'm hurt, and you can say, I understand you, I empathize with you, and I'm sorry. That let me tell you will really change the dynamics of your relationship, and it will make I think it'll make a lot of arguments really just die out much faster than they have to.
I would
And
love to add something to that too when you're done. Yeah.
yeah. Sure. It would really make a lot of arguments and disagreements die out faster and just reconcile so much faster, because this is kind of where we are at right now in our conversation, even with the, getting to when people say what they have to say and then the active listening. This is when people want to sneak in a but so bad.
Right.
You have to be able to restrain yourself from saying, okay, this is what I heard what you're saying. This is what you're hurt. Okay, but no. When you understood what they said, that's when you put the period right there and don't say anything else for like a few seconds, right?
Yeah.
And add what you want to add in there, because I really want to touch on that. But like, get out of whenever you're apologizing, just remove it from your vocabulary.
I agree. Because it's very easy for it to get misinterpreted. But before we even get there, the thing I wanted to add is, I think part of what you really want to consider when you're apologizing for something in a conflict, right, within a relationship that you value, is where do you want to go from here, right? If you want to salvage this relationship, if you want to build and be stronger, if you want to really understand this person that you're in community with, right? Because this is not just romantic, this is not just familial, this is any type of relationship. If you want to be able to move forward in a healthy, edified way and even grow closer, because quiet as it's kept, conflict helps people grow closer when it's navigated well. Right? So if you want, so if you want to do that, you have to really keep that lens at the forefront of whatever you're doing when you're engaging in that conversation. I want this person to know I care. I want them to know that how they feel is valid, even if I don't fully understand how they got there. It's still their feelings, right? And their feelings are still important. Right.
And so, are real. Like it might not be, you might not understand, or you, like you said, it might not be your intent, but their feelings are always real. And so even if you don't believe it, that's not your place to believe it. Their feelings are their feelings, and they're allowed to feel what they feel.
Exactly.
And that's on period.
Yeah, that's it. Well, go ahead. You can get to the but.
Yeah. So I was saying so once you've heard, you've done the active listening, you've responded with the hearing what they're saying, and you'll be able to kind of reiterate and even delve deeper, as you said, into what, and empathizing with how they felt. This is where it gets really dicey, and people start to push buts in there when they've now heard when they've understood why people are upset or hurt. And avoid, abort mission.
Right.
Because it just erases all the work you've just previously done. You know what I mean? You've gotten to this place where they've been able to speak their heart. You've heard them, you've affirmed them by saying, I've understood what you're saying. And this is now the perfect place to, I would say, not only just to let them know that you understood them, but you can explain your intentions, but by first presenting it in a way that is, I would say, very gentle.
Yeah.
You have to be very gentle. So don't use but, like I said, or ifs in there. I think something said that earlier in the comments. I'm sorry if. No, none of that. Because after the person has felt heard and understood, you can now go ahead and say, explain your intention, but don't be argumentative. You have to say it in a way where you're also presenting a solution. Right? And so what that would look like, I'm trying to make it practical. Oh, sorry.
Come on, just prepare on us real quick.
Right? So you present it in a way that looks something like this. So you've heard them, you've reiterated, they say, yes, this is exactly how I feel. Okay, this is where you say, I'm sorry, right? Because now you know why you're apologizing. I'm really sorry that that I made you feel like I was betraying you in that moment while I was talking to so-and-so at the party. I just want you to know that my intentions were, just to be social, whatever. I'm just making this up as I'm going along, right? But my intentions were to just be social, and, I was being professional because we were in a certain setting. But I definitely can see from your perspective how that would make you feel like I've betrayed you.
Right.
You see how I've now I've allowed you to know what my intentions were without taking away from how you felt. So you can do that. You can allow people to know, hey, this is what I was trying to do, without saying like, but, no, but, and just pulling away from their heart, right? And then if you want to make that, even wrap that up nicer, you can say, in the future, what do you feel like you would be more comfortable with in that kind of situation? Or what do you think will work for us? Because you could say, I don't feel necessarily comfortable not speaking to so-and-so because I don't have a direct beef with them, but I also want to be sensitive to the fact that you are important to me. So this is now throwing in reassurance, validation, affirmation to the fact that our relationship is very important to me. So just reminding that how much the relationship means to you. I want to make sure that our relationship is because this is very important to me, but I also want to maintain integrity in this area or whatever. So and you can find that solution together. What do you think would be comfortable for the both of us in this place? Or what do you think you'd be comfortable with?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of what you said, and it's so funny that the reason I say it's an art and a science is because there are a lot of what you walk people through just now are technical things we would train, right? In like a professional development setting, or I would be coaching someone on, these are the actual technical steps. So and you were spot on, an incredible example. So all I would add to that is two things. We talked about active listening earlier, and we said it basically helps you to understand where that person is coming from genuinely, but it also sets you up for where we're at now, right? What we're going to do next, how you're going to respond. And so the active listening is more about taking in the information, understanding what they're saying, hearing, being present, not listening to respond and ready to kind of go, like, okay, this is what I'm going to say to that. This is what I'm going to say to this. But just taking it in and letting it process and resonate. A technical thing you can even do is wait some time, a few seconds after they respond. Do not respond audibly in real time, like, yeah, no, yes, Instead, you can just like nod and things like that to just keep them going, let them know you're engaged, but don't disrupt them. But the thing I want to add is deep listening. Right. And so deep listening is taking it even a step further, right? Where you're listening with more of yourself. You're listening with your feelings. You're listening with your heart. You're listening with so much more of the different sensory ways that we take in information, because information is not solely just verbal, right? You're looking at their body language. You're just kind of really knowing the heart of this person and knowing where they're coming from, so that when you get to this stage where you're trying to figure out what can we do next, or how can I reassure you that this is not what I meant, this wouldn't happen again. It depends on the situation, right? You want to understand in a deeper level why and how it impacted them. And what you'll find is most people are not able to tell you that. Right? Most people don't. They just know they were in their bag. They were just mad. I don't like old girl, and are you talking to her? Or like, let's say, for example, this is a relationship, a romantic relationship, and your partner's like, well, why were you speaking to your ex? Why were you texting your ex? Why were you doing this? Right? And it's like, okay, well, let me also try to hear what else is coming up for them. Because that is how I move forward in our relationship. This is how we navigate the conflict, like I mentioned earlier. Not an apology is not a one-off, but it's a building block for us to get better.
And that's why it's important to get to the place of solution and just, and being able to reassure them, because I think beyond just being sorry, you want to do better. So like you said, being able to build on that is okay. You froze there for a second. But Yvonne said this is good. Yvonne, have you shared this yet? I hope you hit share now.
Right.
Because I know that somebody else can I know there's somebody that can benefit from this conversation. Absolutely. So, and if you're now joining us, well, welcome. and you missed a whole lot. But the good thing is that you can always catch the replay and watch from the beginning, because Fee and I have been dropping just some little gems on how you can apologize and be effective and just productive in it. Because a lot of times there's zero productivity in the way that we apologize, because it's just tit for tat, and it's just back and forth, and no, but you did and I did, and no. So we're gonna we've really gone through the steps on how to show you how to just by the time that you're done with this apology, you're going to have a stronger relationship. You're going to have even more trust in your relationships. And we're not just talking about romantic, we're talking about family, friends, co-workers, whatever it is. You can use this format to apologize in your life to the people, that well, not just people that matter to you, but just people whose feelings that you care about. And I mean, we should care about everyone, you know what I mean?
Right.
So this is really just what this is all about. So thank you much for joining. And if you're watching on the replay, well, you're welcome as well. And I'll read your comments after we're gone. But yeah, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to this, Fee? Just to
So I wanted to add one really quick thing too. Do not be too solution driven in real time, because I think that's another trap that we fall into when we're apologizing. Sometimes, because we want to do it right? Because we want to move forward and get past this like really icky, awkward conflict, and we just want to, okay, what do I gotta do? Okay, I won't do it again, right? But if you rush through that, right, prematurely, and don't sometimes give it a little bit of time to kind of sit for us to process it a little deeper and revisit it, especially for things that are more complex, right? Using your example, if the issue is you spoke to someone that the person doesn't like, but you're not going to not speak to them, it's not as simple as saying, okay, I won't speak to them anymore. Right? So now we need a deeper solution. Now we need to maybe unpack a little bit more about what's showing up for your friend or for this other person that we might have to navigate through, because I'm not going to be able to change my behavior, right?
And sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that's why you want to be able to say everything that we said before. Let them know that you understand, validate their feelings, acknowledge that you did not intend that, but that doesn't matter, right? Don't center your intention, center the impact. But don't rush to a solution and prematurely kind of get yourself in a bind, because what if in you trying to navigate it, you're like, oh, okay, I won't speak to her anymore. And then you go home and a week later she texts you and you're like, what do I do? And now you're in this red, like, if I text her back and then my friend finds out, right? Because you rushed into that. So just keeping that in mind as well.
Yeah. And also I think in asking questions, I think sometimes we can plant seeds in the person who we're apologizing to's mind, because especially in this example of, not talk to this person, a lot of the times there's obviously something that's more deep rooted in that, right? So if you know that the solution is, I can't not talk to this person because, this person didn't do anything to me. The beef is between you and them. And me personally, I'm not the type of person that jumps into other people's fire raids. Like, if you want to go ahead and have your beef, and I can love you both. We're not in elementary school here.
Right.
And it also depends on obviously what it is, you know what I mean? But at the same time, that person has to kind of do some introspective work, some self-awareness, and find out why they're insecure in this moment. You know what I mean? And so just jumping on what you said, why sometimes we have to be slower to be and not be solution driven is because we don't want to make false promises like, oh, I won't talk to you then, and that's not possible. And also you want to give them an opportunity. You can also say, hey, you know what? How about we revisit this in a couple of days? Let's just think about, you've done all the apologies, all that stuff. How about we just kind of think about what we think is a reasonable solution, what's going to work for both of us, and we revisit this in like a couple of days and just talk about, where we're at with this. Because now they've had the time to know that you're sorry, you care about their feelings, you heard their feelings, you've allowed them to know what your intentions were, and now they can sit back and process, their feelings with because the offense has now been taken care of.
Right.
So the offense is no longer the problem. So now they can really think about their own feelings. They can really think about their own thoughts and the roots of where it's coming from. We're talking about somebody who's, emotionally intelligent and and who's able to do that kind of introspective work.
And self-aware.
Now, that's not the case with everyone, and so in some cases, you may have to assert yourself and say, "I love you,"
right?
But.
And that's why it's important to give it some space, because it also gives you the chance to see what you're dealing with, right? Is this like, and just like I said before, we want to make sure that we're reconciling all three parts, right? The truth, your side, and my side. And so, not to say that if you come to me with an offense, I'm like, well, I gotta get something out of this too. Not from that kind of mentality, but you also want to make sure that you are not so focused on them and what they're feeling that you're not being objectively fair about the situation or to yourself as well. Right? And that's like a very evolved skill. That is not most people can't do that in real time. You know, like
sometimes I forget these steps.
Yeah.
I have to pull myself back and be like,
every one of us. Yep. Same. Yep. Yeah. And then also old habits die hard. We spoke about this in the beginning, how we used to apologize or the issues we used to struggle with. And when those things are deeply ingrained in you, you have to unlearn those. Oh, am I back? Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when those old habits are deeply ingrained in you, you have to unlearn those patterns, because your mind will default you back there if you're not focused, if you're not conscious, right? So again, that's why it's so important to slow down this interaction, right? It's not like a back and forth.
Emotions, because it's a lot of times we're coming from the heart, right, with the emotions of how we felt. But if the person, has that time to cool off, and be rational and reason, then you can come back and say, you know what? Like, I don't think it's fair for me to impose on you that you should not speak to someone who hasn't done, and so you allow them to come up with that own solution for themselves. When they do come back and they're like,
right.
Then you know what you're dealing with as well.
And that's exactly what I meant earlier when I said that conflict provides you with an opportunity, right? Because using that exact example, if we came back 2 days later or whenever, and that person is still doubling down to say, well, no, I'm not talking to her, so you're not talking to her. Yeah. Then now you're showing me something about yourself, and I have to reconcile with whether or not that's okay for me, right? Do I want to continue on in this relationship, or at least to this same extent, or what have you, if this is how you're going to show up? And if I'm unable to now say, well, I don't think that's fair to me, and you're like, well, and it's back to, well, this is how I feel, and this is what I want, that's telling me something about you and the nature of our relationship moving forward.
Correct, because there's also a level of selfishness there. And in the art of apology, self has to be left out.
Yeah, on both sides.
On both sides.
Yeah.
And that's why, and that's how this thing happens smoothly, and that's why it's called humility, because there's no self in humility. Both parties have to leave self outside and just deal with the issue at hand without ego, without pride, without without ulterior motives.
Yeah, that's
manipulation, control. Leave it all out. You will see your relationships prosper and grow and be stronger by the end of it, because at the end of the day, what you've let your partner, your friend, your cousin, your mama, your whoever it is,
your boss, or whoever,
what you've let them know, which all of us in the end, in the core of us want to be is understood.
Right. And I think one other thing I would add to that is you also want to make sure that you are fully engaged in this dialogue with the person, right? That you're present. If you're thinking about something else going on some other place and you're kind of missing bits and pieces of it, you might be missing big parts of what's important in this conversation and for you all to move forward. So that's something else you want to keep at the forefront of your mind. And both sides matter. Both sides are important, right? And both sides deserve love and respect. So keep that. Also, if you're the one who was offended, even if you were rightfully offended, there might be ways that you can learn and grow from this as well, right? So that's important to think about. Yeah.
So we have a really interesting question here, which we kind of covered at the beginning, but I really want to just kind of bring it up. So Pastor Hopton Morris says, how do you not hurt someone's feelings when a person was hurt about a situation and wants you to apologize, but you cannot see a reason for apologizing?
I love this question.
Yes. Yes, I love it. I'm just gonna put it back up on the screen. And we touched on this a little earlier, so if you watch the replay, you'll definitely get the answer to this question. But I do want to address it in real time right now because I think this is like something that we've been trying to drive home in this whole conversation.
Yep.
And what we said was that that it doesn't matter what your intention is. There's always a reason to apologize if someone has presented to you that they are hurt. Their feelings are always going to be valid because their feelings are their feelings. And so whether your intentions were not to hurt them, but they're hurt, doesn't matter. It's how your actions have impacted them. Impact, intent, two different things.
Right.
I gave an example earlier that was, pretty explicit, but it's very it's really important for you to see why impact and intent are two different things, and why intent is always at the forefront. Impact is always at the forefront of it. I said earlier, and you can watch it on the replay, but I said, you're driving at night in the rain and you hit a child on their bicycle because you did not see them, not your intention at all. And here comes a mother or a father running out to the child in the street, holding their child, crying and yelling at you, "You hit my child! You hit my child!" You think it's appropriate at that point to say, "I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't see your child. Why didn't you running across the street in the middle of the night?" Do you think that would
Some people do.
Right. But that's also a lack of emotional intelligence and just empathy, just empathy altogether, right? And so in that moment, it would be very insensitive to start pushing what your intention was, right? The fact of the matter is, there's a mother here holding her half-dead child, saying, "You hit my child, you hit my child." What your main focus right now should be the impact of your actions, whether it was your intention or not. I'm so sorry.
Right.
I am so sorry, because with that comes empathy. And so all that to say, it doesn't matter whether you thought you hurt them or not. It doesn't matter if you feel like you were wrong in the situation. If someone says that you hurt them, their feelings are always going to be real for them. And so at that point, I think it's important to listen to why they're hurt. Right. And just apologize for how you impacted them. But we've gone through the steps. You'll be able to hear it back on the replay, because we're not going to go over the whole thing. Right. But you'll be able to, see how to kind of navigate the art of the apology. But Fee, did you want to add something to this question as well?
Yeah, I did. And I first want to just acknowledge that Pastor Morris was so vulnerable to ask this question, right? Because people don't often feel comfortable asking these kind of questions, but it's real talk. It's a real thing. And I just wanted to add, because everything that you said really hit so much of what we were talking about. I wanted to add that validating someone's feelings does not mean you agree with them. It means that you acknowledge them and that those feelings are valid for that person, right? It's not you saying, because I don't understand or I don't agree, then it's not real, right? That's the difference. It's saying, you are visibly upset. You are obviously hurt by what happened. And for that, I apologize. I am sorry. I'm sorry that I hurt you. And then we keep going with all the other steps we talked about. But being able to acknowledge this person's emotion and then apologize for the way that you've affected them, the way that you've damaged them in some way sometimes, right? That's what you're apologizing for. Now, you might also be apologizing for your actions. Right. And that's when you start to get into the reasoning. And that's why before we were talking about avoiding jumping to solutions and, okay, what do I do differently? Because that's when you really have to come to like a kind of a place where you understand each other. Because, for example, if I spoke to that friend that you don't talk to anymore, I don't think there's anything wrong with me speaking to that person, right? I might think something is wrong with you expecting me not to speak to that person. Right. So if I'm saying, "Oh, I'm sorry I spoke to her," that's not genuine.
Right.
So I'm not apologizing for a behavior if I don't understand and I can't come to a place where I see where you're coming from. But I will always apologize for how I've affected you.
Right.
Because that was not my intention.
Right.
And if I hurt you, I apologize for that. That's hands down, period.
Yeah.
Now, the action and all these other complexities, that's when we have to get into deeper conversation and unpack a little bit more.
More,
but
right.
How I affected you, for that, I care about you, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And you should always be sorry for how your actions impact. And I use that phrase, and I don't want to sound like I use it just frivolously, because I don't. But when I know, or when my impact is different than my intent, I will always say, I'm very sorry for how my actions have impacted you. Because that's not me necessarily taking ownership of what you're saying. It's me just saying, I validate your feelings, because you feel what you feel. And for that, I am sorry. I'm really reiterating what you just said, right? But once we've understood and we've come down to, the list of the apologizing that we've presented, later on, now you can deal with intent.
And the heart of apologizing well is sincerity. It's sincerity. Yeah. So if you are insincere about this, and Pastor Morris, we're not talking about you. We're just, we're riffing off of your question. If you are insincere, you don't mean, if you're not sorry you hurt them because you think they have no reason to be hurt, and you're not sorry for your actions because you think that you didn't do anything wrong, then don't say sorry.
Don't say it.
Because you don't mean it. And all you're going to do is perpetuate this conflict and this issue and make it much more muddy. And you're actually going to add to the tension, because now you're going to walk away feeling some type of way that you said something or felt coerced into saying something you didn't mean.
Right.
And now that person's going to walk away feeling like, well, they clearly are lying. They don't care about me.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to sincerely stop, kind of center yourself and take it in and take a moment to really process it and then respond genuinely. Yeah. And if you don't quite understand, then you also got to know who you're speaking to, right? If they have the bandwidth, to be able to kind of have this complex conversation. And if they do, you can be honest. You know what? I honestly don't think I understand how my actions got you there. Can you explain to me a little bit more about what you were feeling? Like, what exactly was it that kind of came up for you? What feelings did you feel when you saw me speaking to that person? Yeah. What did that make you think of? What did you think that meant about our relationship and our friendship? Ooh, asking these questions so you understand, because then it can help you unpack and get to either a place of understanding or a place where you realize, listen, we're going to have to agree to disagree, but I'm sorry I hurt you for real. Like that, I mean, period.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I hope we answered your question, Pastor Hopton. And then, so Eliza says, I'm pronouncing your name right, Eliza. So in response to Hopton, in relationship, some people's offense is based on their traumas. You can both come to a place where you can understand each other and acknowledge their hurt without taking fault. 100%.
Well said, Eliza.
Yes. And I think that's exactly what we were saying earlier when we were saying, when you get to the part about in our steps that we were giving, when we get to the part of solution, sometimes you have to pause there and come back and revisit it in a couple of days, where people can really do some introspective work and say, you know what? I realized I was triggered.
Right. I overreacted. Right.
I overreacted because I saw you do something that was similar to something that was traumatic for me. And I realize now that that wasn't what was happening. I was just having a re-traumatize or a trigger, because that's what it is, really, a trigger, or a sensitive spot that was touched that made me kind of flinch. But you know what? I realized that that was not your intent and I took it the wrong way. And then then the solution is, okay, well, what can I do now? Or how can I help you to not touch that sensitive spot? Or what can we do to work together? And then that's how you kind of build on the apology. Right.
The one more thing I would add to that, because that's spot on, and I'm so glad Elisa brought this up. Yeah. The other thing is also, sometimes it's a trigger, sometimes it's trauma, but also sometimes it's just a person's interpretation of what happened, right? And what your behavior means. We often attach stories to what happened, right? So there's a thing that happened, and then the story we make up about what that happens, and then what we think that story means, right? And all those three things come together, and it affects our response. It affects our feelings, and now this is getting in the way of the relationship. So really paying attention to that as well, because that person might have felt offended or hurt because they're making up a story about what this behavior or this thing means about them, or means about how you feel toward them, or means about who you are as a person in its totality. And sometimes people need a minute to kind of unpack, like, okay, all right, so maybe I overreacted. I didn't eat. I was hangry. There's so many different factors that can contribute to how we interpret things in real time. And those are important to recognize.
And you know what? I made a post a while back that said the lack of communication leaves too much room for imagination.
Absolutely.
And what that really means is sometimes when you do something, it leaves room for people to just kind of like their brains go, because when you do this in my culture, it means something different than when you do this in your culture. And I'm not even talking about culture in terms of like countries and stuff like that. I'm talking about even like just in your family dynamic, or within your, sometimes in my family saying shut up is okay, but in my family, shut up is like,
it's like a curse word.
Right? And so you can say shut up to whoever, and I can tell you shut up and it doesn't do a thing to you, but you tell me shut up and I'm like, who are you talking to?
Right.
And so there's just also just learning each other's languages sometimes that really, because we speaking the same language, but we're not.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. Or I should say we're speaking the same language, but different dialects.
Right. And different interpretations, right? Like, different filters.
Yeah. I'm so glad that we answered your question, Pastor Morris. I'm glad that you that we got that cleared for you. Alice, he says, that's good, Fee. Culture can also frame, that's exactly what I was just saying. Also frame, receive words of interpret actions. Correct. That's completely right. Woo! We've unpacked quite a bit.
A lot, yeah.
I love this discussion. I really do, because it's just something that I think is just so important. I think it's just one of those things where there's so many people that just, including myself for the longest time, did not know how to apologize in a way that would just be productive and bring reconciliation or understanding in the end. If anything, my apology style was very combative, very defensive, and just would not. Either we would just give up, or it would just not end well, right?
And that's why so many people are afraid of conflict, because they don't know how to navigate it.
You don't know how to navigate it.
They're just afraid of it altogether, or they start to kind of build up so much around it that once they realize I'm in conflict, now they're automatically triggered or shut down or defensive. And that's why it's important to be able to have conversations like this, so you can get the tools to change your responses.
And as you say that, this is why it's so important. And I promise you, I'm not doing this for viewership or whatever. Like, I am so passionate. And if you haven't noticed, I'm so passionate about this conversation, because I think that the more that people understood the art of the apology, the more healthy of relationships we all can have with one another. And so this is what I've been telling you guys all night. Hit share, tag your friends in the comments, because if both of us are coming in to the conversation with this mentality of trying to understand and putting ego and pride and self aside, and being able to really hone in on the issue and coming in or trying to find a solution and find empathy in it, as opposed to I'm going to defend me and you're going to, and we're just combative, man, we would have such a much better time at being able to resolve conflict. And it wouldn't be scary. It wouldn't be like, when am I going to say this? How am I going to say this? Because you have the tools right here in front of you. And I think this is just so, the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because I've seen how it's changed the dynamics of my relationships. I feel so good when I can walk through these steps but obviously genuinely, but when I can walk through these steps and come to a resolution, I'm like, well, doggone.
Right. Like, you did that.
Yes, we came to a healthy resolution.
Right.
And
we're better for it.
And we're better for it. And we're closer because of it. You know what I mean? And so I just love it. And And I would just love for you guys to hit share, and that's it. So, anything else you want to say, Fee, before we close out tonight?
I mean, not around the topic. I think we gave people so much, and I don't want to overwhelm them. But I will encourage people to go back and listen to this again, because again, these are some really complex things.
And
we give it to you fast. Yeah, and take notes, and then be able to put into practice. Like, actually, the next time a conflict arises, the next time you have to apologize, right? Use this and say, okay, I have something I can kind of try to work through a little bit, right? And not in a clunky way. Don't say, wait a minute, you're apologizing, let me go get my iPad. Like, you know what I mean? But just keep it in mind and nearby, and whatever ways that you can be able to kind of navigate this, because the more you put it into practice, the better you become at that.
But you know what, though? And just to add on, and I don't want to keep going and going, but like, but, you know what I mean? Because it's time to close up. We're over the time now. But because, like, so for me, I'm someone who struggled with anxiety, right? And so conflict has been something that's always been like anxiety provoking for me, or having to address conflict. And that's why a lot of the times my apology language was very defensive, because I always wanted to be understood. And I had a hard time listening all the way through without cutting off, because I felt like I was going to forget certain parts that I wanted to address, right? And so I know it's clunky and weird and a little awkward, but like, you can communicate, listen, I really want to be able to address everything that you're saying. So just give me a minute, because I have a really bad memory. I just want to write certain things down so I remember to address that. Or I can remember to say that without cutting you off. Is that okay? And I mean, any reasonable person will be like, sure. It might be a little weird, but if that helps you in the beginning while you're trying to kind of change this behavior and navigate through this apology style, then I would say it's useful, because I had to do it at the beginning. I'm okay now. You know what I mean? But at the beginning, I was like, oh, you want to interject?
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think that another side of this is, if this person is also a loved one of yours, right? Just because you're the one having to apologize, it doesn't mean that you don't matter in this conversation, right? So if this person also cares about you, and that's what you need to be able to process this, to be present with them, to be able to navigate through this, and they know you're coming from this sincere place. If they say no again, it's now telling you something about them. Right. And now there's a greater conversation to be had. So I think that's fair. I don't think that's, if it's my boyfriend or my mom or somebody that is close to me, and I'm like, okay, wait, this is coming at me fast. I wasn't really prepared. Can I write this down? Even if it's awkward, I'm awkward. You should know that about me by now, right? So like, what's happening here? I want to be able to really navigate this with you. And they should know the heart behind where you're coming from, or at least you can share that with them.
And that will also help you to do that active listening thing that we talked about earlier. Make sure you hit the replay and listen to this, because I'm telling you, we gave you so much great points tonight for you to just have a successful apology language. But when you write it down, it helps you to stop cutting people off, because you can write down your points, as opposed to wanting to address it in the moment and allow them to complete their thought, pour out their heart. And, everyone gets what they need in that moment. So that's it. Thank you so much, Fee, for joining me tonight. I think your input was just so, like, you just was like the yin to my yang. You were just throwing in. You know what I mean? You were just, we're playing like doubles today. You know what I mean?
We were.
So I really enjoyed your input. Like, so many of you guys may not know, I met her on Clubhouse. We did a Clubhouse, and we talked about a similar topic, and we touched a little bit on apology. And I was like, "Whoa, we need to do a whole lifeboat on this." And I reached out to her, and I'm so glad that you were able to just give me your time. I know you worked a long day today, so I'm gonna cut loose right now and allow you to, go ahead and relax and wind down. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put you backstage while I close out. Is that all right?
I just wanted to ask folks to follow me. That's the only thing I wanted to add, because I do a lot of this work too. And I'm so honored to be here with you, Arian. Thank you for having me. Follow me, folks. Follow me, because I've literally dedicated my entire life to helping people grow and thrive in these different ways. So you can find me at Ignio Impact. It's the name of my company. It's a coaching and consulting firm. And it's IGNIO Impact on Instagram, everywhere. And I eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. And so, I want to make sure that you all can stay connected and get what you need in real time. So thanks again for having me. This was so good.
IGNIO? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
IGNIO impact. It means to ignite impact. And that's what it's all about.
I think it's there on the screen in 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, no. Okay.
Right. I was like, okay, fancy. What a countdown.
So you can find her. You said it's on Instagram.
Yeah, Ignio Impact. Just put the impact.
Oh, Impact. Sorry.
Yeah. And you find me most active right now on Instagram, but it's on all the socials as well. So
perfect. So there it is. If you want to follow her, I think you should. She has a great content. As you can see tonight, she has a lot of wisdom on being emotionally intelligent and self-aware. So go ahead and follow her, and please don't forget also to subscribe and share this conversation as well.
Absolutely.
So,
thank you, Arian.
Yes, no problem. Thank you so much, and I'll see you backstage in just a second. Okay.
See you soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Send up some hearts, some likes for Miss Fee. She did an amazing job tonight just sharing on this topic. We were talking about the art of the apology. If you missed it and you're just joining us now, well, welcome, but we're done. Make sure you hit the replay to listen to what we were talking about, because I promise you it will change your life for the better. I'm just so happy that we were able to just touch those who were here with me tonight. Thank you for watching all the way through. Make sure you hit like, make sure you share, tag some friends in the comments. And if you're watching from YouTube, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because we talk about things like this every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And you can come in and just join the conversation as you have tonight. I'm so happy for the participation. Thank you so much, Bernadette, Miss B. That was Mama B, sorry. Mama B that was watching with us tonight. And all the rest of you, appreciate you. And I just want to let you know that we will be back again, like I said, every Thursday at 9 p.m. But until then, sail on.